final segment of our program, and we are learning a whole lot today about the disability of some people in our country. As I said, we have Erin Brown here, who's a disability advocate, and I believe Jasmine Frazer is even a better disability advocate because of her experience, the experiences she had not only at the University of the Bahamas, where she's a student, but in other places as well. And they're here today to sensitize the public on the need for business owners, even the government, to adhere to the laws of the Bahamas, eh?
And I would even go beyond saying sensitized, because I think over the years that has been our comfy blanket. I'm sensitive, I understand, I hear what you're saying. It is now time to action. And we have the resources and we have the capabilities to do that as a nation. And the first thing we love to say, it costs so much. Yes, so does that Michael Kors bag. So does that nice suit you like to wear, but you choose to buy it. Let's choose to make a difference in lives, because as you're hearing with Jasmine, and as you may have heard some of my narrative, it's time to change the narrative as we're not being thought of. Persons like us, our community is not being included. We're being pushed aside, and it's time, in order for us as a nation to thrive. We're always thinking about ways to make money.
Yeah, but you've seen advancements, right? You've seen people retrofitting buildings and making an attempt, haven't you?
I have seen new buildings that go up as of this month, and they're not disability compliant, and it's because they were told, because I asked. I am that one person that goes in and say, do you realize that this is not accessible for persons living with disability? Well, they were informed that they only needed to put a ramp. And I said to them, I'm sorry to inform you, but you are opening yourself up for fines and lawsuits. Even me, myself, could then go to the Attorney General and file a case against you, and I'm sure I will win that case. But why do we have to get to that point? And it's because they just don't know. So
in addition to having a ramp, what do you suggest?
We also have to include your entrance in getting in. Is it a one-story, two-story? Do you need an elevator? You can choose an elevator. Or you can choose, there's a stairwell, different equipment that you can use to assist persons to go up. You also have to think about your bathrooms. You have to think about your counters. You have to think about persons who cannot see and has to gain access to your building. So do you have the braille? Do you have lower shelving, lower handles, lighter doors? Because I find myself even struggling, and I'm using my crutches now. I can use crutches, wheelchair, or prosthetic leg. Even pulling a door should not sway a certain way if I'm in a wheelchair.
Could I say something on the case of doors? You find that a lot of places have a double door. Half of the door is always locked. Such a pet peeve of mine. And they're like, can't you fit through one side of the door? Why should I force myself through one side when you have a double door? Unlock the door, please.
Yes.
And you can't just have a ramp. That is also a problem that I'm having.
Yes.
At the university, I didn't mention, I'm an education major. My concentration is in English language and literature, and I have no proper access to the library, my sanctuary, where all the books are. If you try to get up the ramps at the library alone, you will pop your neck. No exaggeration.
Yeah.
In all reality,
but I hear you, Jasmine, and people have to make provisions for the disabled in our country. But here again, you know, that University of the Bahamas was the government high school built in the early 60s.
Okay, so what is the excuse for the point is, Frank, what is the excuse for the new building that they hold the advisory board meeting in that I can't get into the restroom? What is the new building on campus that they just built?
I hear your point.
And just opened.
The point is that we have to do these things and ensure that you do have access to bathrooms and all the rest of it. And that is why you're here today, to advocate for it and to make it happen. You know, I have a building here, and we sought to have a ramp and to have doors wide enough for to have a wheelchair access. For instance, this platform that you're on, perhaps we need to have something here so that you can just roll
Even
up.
if it's a temporary ramp at the
Temporary
right
ramp.
grade.
And so, you know, I'm with you. I'm with you,
And I appreciate that.
and but the point is, I believe that sometimes you might be a little impatient, since this is relatively new to the Bahamas. It's a little, might be impatient and not allowing sufficient time for some organizations to get with it.
How many years has it been now?
I can't
Since
agree with that.
2014?
I'm going to say to you that is unacceptable. So I should stay home,
No.
look into the ceiling and feel sorry for myself and not go to school. I should tell my bladder that it's impatient, that I can't go to a function because I can't use the restroom.
Listen, for instance,
In most instances, I like to be vocal or active, so I should be made to sit in the back of a room and not take the platform or the spotlight where I belong.
Jasmine, there are some beautiful.
What are you saying to
I
me?
see you have a beautiful hairdo
What are
here
you
today,
saying to
right?
me?
Yes,
your
Jasmine's
hair
always
is well
very
done.
much flat.
What are you
All right?
saying to me?
And there are some beauty salons that are on a second floor of a building. Okay? There are no elevators there.
No.
Okay? And perhaps there are some of these salons that you might want to go in. Yes?
There are persons that do host calls for that. Like I said, there are temporary fixes
Doctors'
for all
offices
of
on
these
second
problems.
floors sometimes.
Oh, let
without
me
elevators.
speak about that as
Yeah.
well. I mean, it's so ironic that I've had so many of these experiences,
Yes, we all have.
but I am still in the process of sorting out the settlement for my accident from 2 years prior. The insurance company now sent me to their doctor. Why do we have a new building on that back road by ZNS with orthopedic surgeons at the top, at the third floor? I went to see Dr. Barnett. He's on the third floor. The building is not accessible.
That's my
That
point.
is crazy.
That's the point I'm
And this
making.
is where the government put them.
You have
That's crazy.
You have churches that
That
are not
is preposterous.
accessible.
Yes.
Churches that are
That's
not
what-
accessible to
and that does
to
not
disabled
make it-
people.
and that does
doesn't
not
make
make
it
it
right.
right.
No, it
That
doesn't
does
make it
not
right.
make it
right.
And the
Right.
point is that there are certain organizations that require time to fix these things.
And so
then
while they take
sometimes
the
it has
time-
to do. Sometimes it has to do with the availability of funds.
Okay,
No,
well, they are
I
going to
need
spend
to
their
interject
funds on
there.
fines and lawsuits, and let's see how this plays out.
I want to speak to that, Mr. Jones, because when you're saying to
Start
someone,
suing the government first. Start with the
Well,
House of Assembly
well, no.
and tell them you can't get
It
upstairs
starts-
on the
I'm
second
gonna,
floor of the
I'm gonna
house.
tell you, like I told somebody else that knows they're in hot water right now.
Yeah.
I don't need anybody to point any fingers and tell me who to start with.
No. The
They
point,
could
the point
all
is,
get them the same time.
one time.
Well, then you have thousands of people
I do.
who ought to be before the
do.
courts because
I do.
and that will happen, Mr. Jones.
I don't think so.
That
If
will
it
happen.
takes
I
me
don't think so.
every day
That
for the
will
rest
happen.
of my
I don't
life,
think so.
I would advocate and everybody will be held accountable.
But Jasmine
I've been
is
in
not alone
many
in this.
countries in the world where
I am sure.
that there should be the people.
I am sure.
Places should be.
Where do you live, Mr. Jones?
This facility should be accessible to disabled.
But where do
people.
you live? In the Commonwealth
Okay.
of the Bahamas.
And these people have laws. I've been in Canada the other day, and they have
And they're
the
very
disability
progressive.
laws. And I believe that Bahamians are progressive as well in many ways.
I
And
don't
I've
think they take it seriously.
I've seen buildings that are, as I said, retrofitting. I go to a church, for instance, that never had wheelchair access, but now they have it. All right, because the congregation or the board of the church decided that it had to happen, and there are many other churches that are putting these things in place.
So I wanna
and
say
so
to
what
you-
I'm saying to you that there are certain organizations that require time to get these things done. There were buildings that were built in the 30s and the 40s that need to be retrofitted in order to accommodate Jasmine and yourself.
Well, I want to add to what you're saying, because in the 30s and the 40s, we also had persons living with disability then also.
Yes.
And all of these places that you're speaking about that are retrofitting and making these ramps. What is the point of a ramp if me using a wheelchair, a cane, a pair of crutches,
Still can't
a
access
prosthetic
the
leg,
building alone.
cannot get up safely or come down safely?
Makes no
This
sense.
is why I'm saying I cannot agree with you that that we're impatient or we need to have more patience. Disability is a timeless issue. It has always been here, and it will always be here. If we continue to sit here and say, oh, well, that's nice that ramp is there, because you don't use it. You do not have the experience of what that nice looking ramp is. So we need to take in consideration, Mr. Jones, that yes, we have people in the Bahamas. We have a beautiful nation that wants to do much and that is willing to do much. But they need must to understand in doing, this is the correct way in doing, not only for sustainability, but for also to open up a whole new market, a whole new economic value. That when you're thinking about those pennies that you now have to use to do a ramp, to do a doorway, to now change your marketing, and you're saying, I really don't have it in our budget. We need to have this serious conversation that for years and decades, we have not considered our community who are disabled persons of value.
Erin,
at the
listen
end
to
of
me.
the day,
You
Mr.
can talk
Jones,
forever, right?
that is
but
what it
there
is.
are certain
We
organizations that have
to
been trying to.
and I applaud them.
And so let me say this, okay? Let me say this. There are organizations that have been trying to make it, to make their facilities accessible to disabled people. I go to churches, for instance, where you are able to get in the church, but you're not able to get to the rostrum, to the pulpit. You're not able to get up to the pulpit to speak. Now, are you going to say, well, you know, I'm disabled and you should I should be able to get up there where the preacher is? Why don't you have it done already? Well, the fact of the matter is you are able to get into the building, and there are extenuating circumstances. All right, and you have to allow these for these extenuating circumstances. And sometimes a disabled person should meet me halfway, man. I am trying to facilitate you, but this is an old building now. I've been able to get you in. I made a ramp for you to get in, but you cannot get up to the pulpit. So you're gonna sue me because you can't get up to the pulpit? Is that what you're saying?
Jones, what I am saying to you.
So
is,
I'm just calling on you people to be reasonable.
Can
all
I
right?
say
To
something?
be reasonable.
Hold on.
But you mightn't be able to get into the president's office that might be on the second floor. I don't know. But you are able to get near to him because there's a ramp near to him.
Mr. Jones, if I may answer to what you just said. When you're speaking of...
Hold your point.
Hold on.
If you come to this building, for instance, I have a ramp that you can get in. But you're not going to be able to get to my office. Because there's no... this is a two-floor building, right? And I do not have an elevator. So are you going to say, well, you know, I should be able to get up to your office?
Allow me, Erin. Mr. Jones,
Well, I allow you to
I
get
will
into
say
the
to
building.
you, I was not born with a disability.
Yes.
A
Neither
car
was I.
accident did this, so you can leave this building and be hurried off to a meeting, and worse come to worse, and
How are
you're
you
now
gonna get
using a
upstairs?
wheelchair. So that means you're not going to use your office anymore?
No, he's not, apparently.
No, I don't understand what you...
When the
What she's
tides are
saying is,
turned,
that's what I wanted to
when
say.
things change, as they can in the blink of an eye.
No, well, you see, I would come to understand
Then your
that
needs change.
I had an unfortunate accident, and there are certain things that I'm just not able to do. I'm going to be reasonable. And
I'm understanding the point of being reasonable.
And understand that, well, you know, I just cannot go into that office on the second floor anymore because I had an accident. And perhaps what they should do is to accommodate me on the first floor.
Okay. So I
Wait a
should
minute.
understand that I can't use the restroom too.
No.
Is that what you're saying
I'm
to
not
me?
saying that at all. I'm
Okay,
saying that
I want to- I
I'm
want to
saying
be clear on what
I'm
you're
saying
saying to
you
me.
that people ought to make the doors wide enough
Yes.
so that you can roll into the restroom. There should be handles low enough that you can reach them. I'm with you on that.
Okay.
But all I'm saying to you is that given this law is relatively new in the Bahamas, that there should be forbearance on the part of people who are disabled, and you should bring these things to the attention of owners of buildings, people who run organizations, as you are doing now, that they should make these buildings accessible to you, bathrooms accessible to you, so that you are able to lead a normal life.
Mr. Jones, what you're asking and what you're saying right now, it is the exact reason why we have not moved forward.
Yeah.
And it's when you're referencing to saying, why should I do that for disabled persons? You're actually doing it for you also.
No, I'm not
you're
saying
doing it for all. When
I'm
you
not saying,
need to
I'm not
become,
saying that. I'm not
when
saying
you
why
need
you should
to
do that for a
become-
disabled person. I never said that.
no, you're saying why should I make accommodations for you to come up to the pulpit? That was one of your examples.
No, I
So
didn't say
was
why.
just
I said
meaning-
I said, let me repeat what I said. There are churches that always had these pulpits that were elevated. Okay? You are not able to get up there by a wheelchair, but you are able to get into the building because they've made ramps available, or they've built ramps for you to get into the building. And the fact that you can get into the building, you should be reasonable and understand that this is an old building, yes, and give people an opportunity to accommodate you. That's all I'm saying.
All right, Mr. Jones. So, hear me now. Hear what I'm saying to you. When the Disability Equal Opportunity Act was placed in 2014, there was a 2-year grace period that was given before the Accessibility Act component of it was enacted for businesses to have time to make their spaces and do what they need. That's one. I'm only going to speak to you from factuality here because
What is accessibility?
What is
accessibility?
That is where I'm heading with you.
Yes.
When you sit here and you say, I've already made it accessible for you to come inside, what actually is that? It is time now for businesses, it is time now for all of us, because these accommodations, like we stated in the first part of the show, is for all of us. If we live our 70, we're going to need these same things that I am advocating about, that persons living with disability are advocating about. You now have to learn, you now have to become more knowledgeable of what is accessibility. And instead of just looking at it from an outside view in, because as a non-disabled person, we're used to having this thought process that anything that is created or built must be built for non-disabled persons. It is not an instant that you think about, what about those persons who are disabled? How will they then use this space? So we need to now change the narrative, and that happens by learning more about accessibility, what it is to be accessible. It is not just a ramp. And it might appear that the ramp is beautiful, but is the ramp the right grade? Is the ramp safe? Because as you say, if you have an accident or you can't use your knees, some of those ramps, even you as a person who has both legs, will not have the ability to go up those ramps. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody to just go and sue and have fun suing because you cannot get on a pulpit or you cannot get to your office because they want to meet you. What I am saying is know your rights as a person living with a disability, because you do have rights and they are human rights. And when we have the discussion of why not and who isn't and why can't they, we're taking away from the value of what we can do when it comes to inclusion.
You done?
I'm not sure.
You done? You sure? Okay, good. You made a very good point. And I congratulate you for being an advocate. And I would like to encourage you to continue your advocacy, both you and Jasmine, because I really believe that this is a very good cause, and people ought to be educated on an ongoing basis
Yes.
throughout the country on the need to make facilities accessible to disabled people,
Yes.
no matter where they are,
For all of us.
for all of us. But at the same time, I call on you to be reasonable and to understand that there are sometimes extenuating circumstances that sometimes would not allow people to move as quickly as you would wish them to move.
And I would like for you to do
Okay.
the same for us,
Yes.
because we have insinuating circumstances
Yes.
too that we live with daily.
Yes, yes. So the fact that you are not able to get up to my office on the second floor, I would like for you to understand that there is a particular circumstance.
Oh, Mr.
All right?
Jones, trust me, I will
but
crawl
but
up
I
those stairs if I have to see you.
But I have made it very possible in terms of creating
Getting into the
ramps
building.
and all of that.
And we thank you for that.
And we appreciate that very much.
And Bianca, thank you so very much for bringing these wonderful people here today.
Yes,
And
thank
I
you.
think they did a fantastic job in communicating their desires to the public.
Yes, I
Thank
think
you
so
very
Thank
too.
you for having us.
Thank you for watching and listening to our program. Good evening, everyone.